Hello dear friends, welcome to our channel Simplified Computer Science Concepts by Dr. Rutuja. Today we will be learning deferred database modifications in DBMS, which is one of the technique of log-based recovery. Now the name itself suggests what is a log-based recovery. So basically recovery is what? If the system goes into a failure state, to recover from that state is nothing but recovery. Now why we are saying it log-based recovery? Because something which is related to logs is there. Now what is that? Let us see. So if there are some catastrophic failures, can the system be recovered or not? This is the question. So one of the method to recover is log-based recovery method. Now what are these logs? These logs are nothing but small size file that stores actions. That means anything and everything a transaction has performed is stored in a log. A best example or a real-time example of this log is nothing but our browser history, wherein if you can see in this particular diagram, you can see what all pages you are visited and at what particular timestamps. So this is nothing but a log of your browsing history. Similarly, let us now map this concept to database transactions. So if a system fails, the reason of system failure can be anything. It can be power failure, it can be some natural calamities like fire, floods, volcanoes, or it can be a simple network crash. But then we have to recover from such system failures. So it can be done either by rolling back that particular transaction or performing some modifications, and that too by observing the log files. Now, the system fails and this transaction must be recovered either by rollback or modifications. How do we do that? As I told, we have to just look at the log file. Now, by looking at the log file, there are two types of log-based recovery. One is the deferred database modification. The other one is immediate database modification. In this particular lecture, we will be focusing on deferred database modification. So, what is deferred basically? So, simple English meaning of deferred is delayed. So, how does this different types of log records are maintained? These are some examples, and then we will go actually to the execution. So, whenever a log is there, it can be maintained in or some sort of these ways. So ti, start, which means that this particular transaction has started its execution. Then the second one is ti, a, 20, which means that transaction I is performing some operation on data A and its latest value or the new value is 200. Then the next one is ti, commit, which means that this particular transaction has committed itself and all the changes have been permanently stored on the database. Then comes ti, abort, which means this particular transaction has been aborted abnormally. Then how to make a log? Let us see that. So let's say this is a transaction T1 which has these particular tasks into it. The first one is read of A is equal to A plus 100, write of A, read of B is equal to B plus 200, write of B and commit. Now this is the database. Initially A is having value of 300, B is having value of 600. Now how this particular logs are maintained, let us see. So first, which particular transaction started? T1. So the first thing is, as per in the last slide that we saw, T1, start. Then read of A happened. After read of A happened, that means it is 300. Then 300 plus 100 got added to it, and then came write of A. When came write of A, the transaction becomes now T1, A, 400. That means transaction T1 is operating on A data and its latest value is 400. That means 300 plus 100, which is 400. So if you see, the new value is stored in the log file, right? Then comes the next operation, that is R of B, that is read of B. Read of B value is 600. we are adding, the next statement is adding 200 to it, which means 800, and now we are writing it into the log file. So what is the now value? T1 comma B comma 800, which means that T1 is operating on B data whose latest value is 800. And finally it gets commit, which means that all the transactions have been all the tasks have been successfully completed, and now the new values can be updated into the database. So this is how the log file is maintained. This is the log file of transaction T1. So if you see here, basically which values are maintained. So the new values, the latest values of that particular variable is maintained in the database. So how this deferred approach works? So let us see that. So let's see. This is a transaction T1 which has certain tasks into it. The initial value of A and B is 300 and 600. The operation is read of A, which means it will read 300 from the database. So the value here at this particular step is 300. Then A is equal to A plus 100, which means that 300 plus 100 is 400. Then write of A will be writing the latest value of A, which is 400. But now this will happen in the shared memory and not into the database. Why not into the database? Because the transaction has not been committed yet. So all these changes will be stored into the shared memory. Then comes read of B. What is the read of B operation from the database? Initial value of B is 600. By adding 200 to the 600 will now become 800. Right? And then the second last operation is write of B, which is 800. Now this write of B, after this write of B, we have a commit operation, which means that all the data can be now permanently stored into the database. So here, this particular 800 will not be stored in the shared memory, it will be shared in the final database. And now the final value in the database of A and B will be 400 and 800. So the latest values or the new values of A and B are now updated into the database. Why? Because the commit protocol or the commit statement was included in transaction T1. Now how recovery is performed in deferred method? Let us look into this. So now let us first assume that failure has occurred. So this is the particular transaction T1. These are the initial values and this is a log file. Right? So the first thing, after this transaction has been executed, the database value now changes to 400 and 800. Why? Because there is a commit, and after commit, whatever the latest values are there of A and B will be stored into the database. So what are the latest values in A and B as per the log files? It is 400 and 800. So that is stored in the database now. So now the recovery manager checks the log file of the T. This is the log file. Then whether T1 has start and commit, it checks in the log files. Yes, T1 has start and T1 has commit also. So if the answer is yes, then it performs redo operation. What do you mean by redo operation? The redo operation means the new values, that is 400 and 800, will be updated into the database. So if already the same values are there, then it simply overwrites it. So here it is simply overwriting those values. And if those values are not there, then the new values will be updated. Right? So this is how it is happening. Then comes the case 2. Let us now observe case 2. So let's say this is again a transaction T1. This is its log file. Here, if you just see, we have read operation, then write, and again followed by some other tasks. And at the end, if you observe, there is a failure. Now what happens over here? The recovery manager again checks the log file of the transaction. So whether T1 has start and commit, it has start but no commit because there is a failure that has occurred. So when there is no commit, in that case the redo operation will not be performed. It will perform rollback. Rollback, that means it will go to its initial state. it will not perform undo operation. It will keep the old value, that is 300 and 600 into the database. And that is why it is called no undo and redo method. So here if you see, these are the new values 400 and 800, but it has not updated to 400 and 800. It has kept its old value. Why? Because there is no commit over here. That is why here we are not doing redo, we are rollbacking, we are not performing undo operations. That is why it is called no undo redo method. We will see one more example. So these are the log files of, let's say, one transaction wherein there are two transactions T1 and T2. If you just check, T1 has start and commit, but T2 has only start, no commit. So here there are three variables also, A, B and C. A is initially 100, B is 200 and C is also 200. Now what happens? Let's say a recovery manager checks the log files of T. Whether T1 has start and commit? Yes, it has. So if it has, then it will perform redo operation. That means it will update the value of A to 200 and B to 400. Now it will go to transaction T2. In T2 it has only start but does not have commit. So in that case it will keep the old value, which is 200. It will not update to the latest value, that is 500. So if we just see now, just look, 200, 400 and 200. 200 and 400 is now updated because it had commit, but T2 did not have commit. So the updated value, which is 500, is not reflecting. The old value 200 is reflecting. So that is why it is called as no undo redo method. So I hope you have understood this concept. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Please do like and share, subscribe to the channel. Thank you.